Hey everybody, it's David Pingree. Thanks for tuning in to another edition of Dialed In. We've got the 2018 Suzuki RM-Z450 today. We've been spinning laps around here at Milestone trying to sort out a good setting for you. And we've got, I think, what is a pretty good starting point. This is my first time on the bike. We did the introduction with Henry Miller back at JGR's compound back east. And so it's my first time really getting on this thing and sorting through it. And my initial impression is that the engine is slightly improved, a little bit better everywhere. Same characteristic of the old motor, which I like. That's a good thing. Just makes a little bit more horsepower. And, you know, that's great for me. I think, I always said this bike was a spring fork, about 10 pounds and a little more horsepower away from being the best 450. And I still believe that. We'll get to the suspension here in a minute, but the engine's good. Still could use a little bit of juice for maybe your intermediate pro level riders, but that's easily attainable on these things. Guys aren't running with stock exhaust and stuff like that anyway. So you throw, you know, even a slip-on on here, that would help. A little bit of mapping, and this thing's right in the hunt. One of my favorite things about the Suzuki is the way it turns, the way that the rider compartment feels, just the general ergonomics of it, and none of that's changed. That's a great thing for 2018. Still got that really comfortable feel. You jump on and it feels like a fun bike. Thing really turns quickly, moves around easily in the air. You don't really feel that weight, even though it is one of the heavier bikes, until you're lifting it on the stand. But on the track, it feels good. The suspension is where we spent most of our time today, and I imagine it is going to be the most critical part of making this bike work for you. Some of our recommendations from Suzuki were to add a little bit more sag. So guys that were initially starting out at 105, they started recommending going anywhere from 108 to 110 millimeters of sag on this thing, just to get that back end to kind of settle down and squat a little bit, to settle into turns and ruts. We had some issues today with the back end feeling planted when I would come into turns. Just a little chatter, it just kind of wants to dance a little bit. So we kind of chased that a lot today. The sag helped, so go up higher on the sag. Some of the other things we did, they recommend either going in a quarter to a full turn of rebound on this. And again, that's just to kind of quiet that back end down, get it to just stay put. We did that, it did help. And then I went softer on my compression. And something to note, if you haven't spent a lot of time looking at this shock, there are no more clickers. There's two dials, tension, which is rebound, so don't let that throw you. And then a compression. And the compression and the tension adjusters are just screws. They don't click, so now they're measuring their adjustments in just eighth of a turn, quarter turn, half turn, etc. So when they say rebound, a quarter of a turn to a full turn in, you're just going to have to count turns and make that adjustment right. So for me, I went a little bit softer as well on the compression, about a full turn, and I like that better. Again, that's going to be kind of based on your weight and your riding style. The fork, they recommended going a little bit slower, so from your stock setting, which should be 8 out, slow your rebound down 1 or 2 clicks. And again, just kind of keeps it from moving around too much. It'll kind of give your fork more of a planted feel. And then they were going a couple clicks stiffer on this. But to me, it felt already a little bit harsh, you know, and I'm working on the little chatter bumps coming into turns, little chatter as I would exit ruts. That's the stuff I was really feeling today. This stuff has a great feel on big hits. It almost felt like a Supercross setting in here to me. You know, I could flat land off of a jump, and no worries that this thing would bottom out and hurt my wrist. It's really good on the big landings. It's that little chop and chatter that I was trying to get to be a little more compliant. So I went the opposite direction. Suzuki recommends a couple stiffer on the clicker, the compression clicker. I went a couple softer, and then I dropped the fork in the tube a couple mils. So what that does, as you soften it, it's going to want to drop down, but when you drop the fork, it kind of brings the bike back up and balances it. So for me, it got it to work where it's working a little bit better on the softer bumps, but I didn't lose my balance where I would be stink bug. Kind of kept the bike even for me. So that's something you're going to have to play with and try to find a balance for you, depending on where you ride, if you ride further forward or further back, how stiff you like your stuff, what kind of tracks you're riding and all that. But I think that's a good starting point, what we've mentioned, and then consider playing with this fork height, just dropping it down in the clamp a couple of millimeters, and it'll make a big difference. You'll feel it. As far as gearing on this thing goes, I think stock is really good. I wouldn't mess with it. You will hear guys say, oh, add a tooth. Anytime you add a tooth, unless the bike is really chugging in turns and you're stalling it a lot, by adding a tooth, you may feel like you're going faster. It may feel like it's hitting harder in the meat of the power, but you're actually just binding up the suspension so it's not working the way it's supposed to. These things have so much torque, you want it to lug out of the turns. Leave the clutch alone, roll the throttle on as you exit corners. It'll make you smoother, you won't get your arms won't pump as much, and the bike will work the way it's supposed to. So try to stick with stock gearing if you can. If we have other suggestions, we'll let you know, but this stock gearing is pretty close on this thing. And other than that, we didn't make any changes. I like this bike. Like I said, it's probably one of the most comfortable bikes just to sit on and ride that there are. So I'm excited about the changes they made. I think there's definitely some tuning to be done on this suspension. It's just a little rigid feeling for me. I'm going to be anxious to get maybe some lighter springs in it and see if I can get it set up better for me. I feel like it's probably a little oversprung for 170 pounds. So when we do our garage builds, we'll get back to you a little bit more info on that. But it's stock trim. Start with some of those settings. I think you'll like it. And if you're going to invest in a 2018 RM-Z450, those will help get you turning quick lap times at your local track, and I think you'll be happy. Thanks for watching. See you in the next one.